Hello, Duality community. This is the significantly less weighed down with hair Christian, welcoming you to another episode of the Duality of Wrestling podcast. As always, thank you so much for checking out my channel. Really appreciate you stopping by and hearing what I have to say about the current state of the AEW television product. And speaking of which, let's jump right in because I want to try to keep this at one part, considering we've got a pay per view preview to do tomorrow. That's definitely going to be a two-parter. So I want to try to condense this as much as possible. And thankfully, AEW last night on Dynamite made it a little bit easy for me because there weren't a whole lot of new developments to talk about. There was some great in-ring stuff. We found out a few new matches for Redemption. So let's dive in. So we started off the show with a backstage promo between Kenny Omega and Will Ospreay, where you started to see the first signs of dissension between the two. There was a little bit of um, toning it down from the babyface versus babyface promo we've been getting about, the blowing smoke and saying how much they respect each other and how great of a match it's going to be. Finally, it was about like, oh, hey, I'll be there if you, need to take a rest like you did before, or if your neck hurts, or if your tummy hurts, whatever the case is. There's a little bit of under the radar shade there. Finally, John Moxley comes in there and sort of doesn't really have to say much. He's like, there's really no tension here. And Kenny responds slyly, there wasn't. So, we're probing the dissension angle here. It comes up later in the show, and it makes me think of sort of the match I would much rather have. I'll talk about that as we get to the main event. But we jump right in as far as matches go with a really hot opener. Kevin Knight defending the TNT Championship against Darby Allin. This is a fantastic, brutal match. Darby opens with his trademark suicide dive through the ropes onto Kevin Knight. The match quickly spills to the outside. I say match even though we have not had a bell ring yet. And it culminates into a dive from the ring post over to the announce table area where Kevin Knight is. Again, Darby just throwing caution completely to the wind and leaping off of whatever is nearest to him that will impact his opponent and probably himself as well. The We finally get the bell ringing after that one. Darby getting takes a brutal running crotch shot where he is heaved by Knight off of the ramp onto the barricade. So just picture Knight throwing him in a running fashion and then crotching himself after running onto that barricade. Really looked brutal. No real great way to land that without jamming both the left one and the right one, probably. So that's unpleasant. Then Knight follows it up with a sort of springboard back elbow onto Darby while he's, sort of crotched on that guardrail. So looked really good. A lot of this match focused on sort of brutality. The dives to the outside, the shots with some of the things around the ringside area. You then had Darby Allin get catapulted through the top of the ring steps, for example, by Kevin Knight as he pulled him away from the ring and used it in that sort of catapult move fashion. Top of the ring steps came off. To me, this is all a really big setup for where we're going in this story. Darby eventually puts Kevin Knight's arm inside the top of the ring posts and beats on it. We close out the match with Knight with a belt shot while Darby's, hung up on the top rope. Then we get a Van Terminator. I refuse to call it Coast to Coast. I won't do it. It is the Van Terminator now and forevermore. Shane McMahon be damned. And then after the Van Terminator connects, Knight lands the UFO splash to get the clean defense over Darby Allin. I said earlier that this sort of foreshadows where this feud is going. It's what I've been calling all along. The fact that this match was as violent as it was, that it incorporated as many outside elements as it did, to me, that just screams coffin match. So that's where I think we're going. I very much see this being a situation where Darby and Knight reconnect at All In with Darby's signature coffin match stipulation. That seems like it'll be the great way to culminate this feud that began with Darby getting attacked on a stretcher. It just seems like the way this story should go, full arc to close everything out. That leads us to the post match. While Kevin Knight is celebrating, Kyle Fletcher comes out to cut that celebration short, which Kevin Knight is none too pleased about. Then we get Okada coming out after that to get ready for the Proto-Kata versus Brodito match. But before we get there, we get a pre-match interview with the Don Callis family in ring, being interviewed by Renee Paquette, and it primarily focuses on the big title holders in the DCF. Mark Davis with the national title, Kevin Knight with the TNT championship, and Kyle Fletcher with the international championship. Knight sort of verbally jousts at Fletcher, saying that he, in this match, in beating Darby Allin, broke Kyle Fletcher's record for most defenses in a single TNT championship reign, which Kyle Fletcher does not, seem pleased with even a little bit. So then he says, to match what you did tonight with the Don Callis family not being present at ringside, not only will the Don Callis family be banned from ringside during tonight's match against Brodito, but they will also be banned from ringside Sunday when he defends that international championship against Bandito at the Redemption pay-per-view. So that sort of brings us to that stipulation. I like that. It's a nice narrative way to tell it's a nice narrative way to get us where we were going. It's not just something they throw in there for no reason. They give us an in-ring and story reason to arrive at that stip. So I like that booking. That leads us into the match itself between Proto-Kata and Brodito. Um, Obviously, stellar in-ring work by everybody involved. All four men are at the top of their game, and everybody getting ready for the Redemption pay-per-view. So this was a really, really fun match. Nothing standout, though, I'll say. It's a good showcase and good tease for what we can expect on the pay-per-view, especially between Fletcher and Bandito. How this match ends, we get a 21 plex from Brodito onto Kyle Fletcher after Kazuchika Okada misses a Rainmaker and connects with Fletcher instead. And he sort of does the same thing he did during the Takeshita feud, where he looks back at, his fallen comrade and just sort of shrugs it off. So Brody takes him out on the outside, which allows Bandito to hit the 21 plex and get the win. Post-match, the Don Callis family comes out. Okada does his sort of feigned, "Oh, I'm sorry" apology again. Same thing he did with Takeshita when things like that happened as well. Fletcher freaks out at him, saying, "I lost because of you." This is very, very obviously moving in the direction of a three-way between Fletcher and Okada and Takeshita at All In. I could even theoretically see it being a singles match, but I don't, between Okada and Fletcher based on this segment alone. But I don't think we're going to write Takeshita out of this feud. I think this has been building for too long. I think that the way Takeshita has been so stellar throughout this entire feud, it would be criminal to leave him out of it in favor of a singles match. The only reason I would consider the idea of a singles match with Takeshita not being involved is if we do a three-way in the women's match at All In between Mercedes, Tekla, and Willow. I will touch on that during the next segment. However, I do think we're going to end up with a three-way here. It's the most logical thing to do with a sort of building to a three-way feud here, getting all three of these guys in the ring together, considering the build we've had from the Proto-Kata, tag team all the way back to Proto-Shida, as a tag team, and the beef that obviously Takeshita and Okada had for over a year just seems the logical way to go. Then we get a Painmaker hype video, getting us geared up as much as we can be for Chris Jericho's Painmaker character taking on Tommaso Ciampa in a no-holds-barred match at Redemption. I'm not looking forward to this. I've never been a fan of the Painmaker character. I like many of Jericho's incarnations, and I will be the first to say I've been a big Jericho guy ever since I first saw him wrestle for the ECW Television Championship against Pitbull 2. I've been a Jericho fan for a long time, so it's hard to say that there's an incarnation of him that I don't particularly care for, but if there is one, it's Painmaker. It feels boring. It's not all that interesting. It's just him trying out a darker version of the character that to me just feels like, an edgelord hot topic kid trying to look cool, and it just falling flat. So doesn't work for me, Chris. Sorry. I'm sure it'll still be a good match, especially with the kind of role Ciampa's been on since signing with AEW. I believe this Sunday will mark about the 6-month mark with him with the company, and he has done nothing but phenomenal things there. I expect nothing less. And I assume he'll carry Jericho to a very good match. Then, as I mentioned before, we're moving on to the women's championship hype segment where Mick Foley moderates a face-off between Tekla and Willow Nightingale ahead of their match for Tekla's AEW Women's World Championship at Redemption. Tekla is getting over as a face. We got and the production and AEW is clearly acknowledging it. They showed a couple different signs in the crowd. One said toxic. One that came that said I came or drove to see Tekla. There were some, favorable reactions for some of Tekla's lines. Tekla's getting over as a face, and that's great for her. But it's also a little bit concerning because you want her to, remain as a heel. She's been great in that role. I don't think you should shift her out of it so soon. I'm not also sure that her current character works as a babyface without some kind of tweaks and a really good foil to play off of. Frankly, Toni Storm, if she was around, would be a fantastic foil for that. I'm not sure they have that foil on the roster right now, so we'll see. But the penultimate area of this segment was Willow talking about like a shortcut to get to her dreams, those being the holding the AEW Women's World Championship, and sort of condescendingly putting her hand on Tekla's head to show that she didn't really match up stature-wise to Willow, and that sent Tekla off. And Tekla had a really good end to this promo where Tekla said, while after all of the things I do to you, destroy your rainbows, bring clouds over them, piss on the clouds, remember to smile anyway. And she's just become such a good promo. Everything she does, it's not just the dumb bitches lines that people pop for. It's not just how unhinged she can be. She's just become a really good promo during her time with the championship. And it really makes me want a three-way between these women, Tekla, Willow, and Mercedes Moné at All In. Tekla has certainly earned it with the work she has done as champion. She's really carried the top end of this women's division. I've said that all along. I will continue to say it. And I don't think we're going to be able to extract Willow from that because I don't see Willow losing at Redemption, especially given that Tekla came out with her newly won Artist of Stardom, or 1/3 of the Artist of Stardom championships. With that win, it makes me think that we're going to see a trios match at All In, defending those Stardom championships. And it makes me think that Willow versus Moné will be a singles match, which means Willow is going over Sunday at Redemption and winning the championship. Don't love it. I feel like if we are doing the culminating dream story for Willow, we should be building that up a bit more than we have, than her just winning a gauntlet match a little ways back to earn that championship spot. I feel like there should be some labors, some journeys, an odyssey, if you will, to have her get there, and we haven't seen that. So I feel like they're trying to tell us that there was an odyssey rather than showing us that there was an odyssey to get there, and I don't like that. I feel like it should be something the audience invests in over time and the struggles of this character, and that hasn't happened, especially because the last time we saw her prior to this, it was as TBS champion. So we can't reasonably make the argument that Willow has had a great deal of adversity to overcome because she was just champion and now is challenging for a arguably bigger championship. So don't like that. Would rather see a three-way between these three women, but I don't think we're going to get it. So I don't want to set myself up or any of you up for disappointment. I'm going to say that we don't get that, and it's going to be a straight singles match, Willow defending the championship against Mercedes. We move on from there to an announcement that on Collision, we are going to have Maya World and Willow Nightingale taking on Tekla and TBS champion Hikaru Shida. Shida will be defending the TBS championship on Sunday at the Redemption pay-per-view against Maya World. So we're doing the challengers versus the champions in a standard tag match. This is your basic plug-and-play pre-pay-per-view formula we've seen on the Monday night shows for decades now. So nothing new to see here. Next, we move on to Jay White versus Clark Connors. Jay White takes this one via submission. Jay White enters, still carrying David Finlay's shillelagh. And the main thing that I wanted to touch on from this match was Clark Connors has a fantastic spear. We have talked about that a good bit of times here. No one's disputing how great Clark Connors' spear is. For my money, it's either him or Tekla, ironically enough, considering they're a real life couple, that have the best spears in the business at the moment. But Clark Connors added something to his repertoire here. He used sort of more of a running body check, almost like a more vicious looking pounce that looked a bit more organic. And it was very effective in this match. You saw him bump Jay White into the ropes that looked pretty vicious. We saw him do it with Jay White's head on the outside. We saw another one just coming off the ropes in the ring. It looked like a really good hockey style body check that didn't look like it took a lot of choreographic setup. It looked very natural and organic. So, again, Clark Connors' offense continues to look very good, and he's a really impactful wrestler that I hope continues to build out that moveset and build on some of the great strides he has made since debuting in All Elite Wrestling. Jay White wins with an odd reverse choke submission that I've never seen before. If any of you have, please let me know what this is. I'm not quite as familiar with some of Jay's Japan stuff, so if this is something he's done before, please educate me. I've never seen him do it before. They were both kind of laying, and Jay did a sort of a reverse choke submission. Looked a little bit odd, and commentary actually called out that like it was sort of a big risk, and Jay was really taking a chance applying that. But that's how the match ended. Post match, Jay White, hits Connors as he is getting up with a Blade Runner. Finlay then shows up to level White with his shillelagh until the Bang Bang Gang runs him off after that shillelagh shot. We get a brief backstage promo with Cope and Cage, who are going to talk about their match with the Death Riders, Pac and Claudio, at Redemption for the AEW Tag Team Championships until the Death Riders, Pac and Claudio, come and jump them and beat them down and say, "How dare you challenge us? We're coming for you." That'll be a great match. I am very much looking forward to it. Anytime I can get Pac and Claudio and are in a title match situation on my TV, so much the better. That brings us to the no disqualification women's tag team championship match between Divine Dominion and the newly crowned Artist of Stardom champions, Sisters of Sin. This was fantastic, and I've really not seen a women's hardcore match in AEW not over deliver, not just deliver, over deliver. And this match did as well. This was just great. And this is a really great way that you could utilize the Sisters of Sin. I'm a bigger fan of them than most people are. While that is the case, I do acknowledge there are some in-ring experiential limitations with both Sky and Julia. So I think a great way to minimize those limitations and accentuate some of the positives that come from their character work is to feature them more in matches like this. We've seen them shine in these situations before. We've seen Sky particularly shine in the women's blood and guts match, which I really think should have been a star-making performance for her. But this is an area where the sisters really shine very well, and the Divine Dominion are a great foil for them because they are bigger competitors. They can throw the smaller Julia and Sky around, metaphorically thump those lady belt dicks on the table again. So this was a fantastic match. I loved that there was a nice little touch that the tops that the sisters came out in matched their colors of the Stardom Championship belts. That was just a nice little touch there on the backstage team's part. Well done. Also, I loved the hockey jerseys that the Divine Dominion came out in. And I don't think I've said this before, but the Divine Dominion in their entrances where they have Lena on one side and Megan on the other side, sort of talking about like the heaven and hell dichotomy of facing the Divine Dominion, which plays into the finisher name of theirs, From Heaven to Hell. And then you have both Cross and Bane come in from each of the sides they were each of them speaking from. It's just a really nice touch. It's really cohesive. It's narratively and visually excellent. Really well done on the part of AEW's production and design team there. So, match starts off really, really quickly. The sisters jump the Divine Dominion with canes. I won't call them kendo sticks. I was raised on ECW. They'll always be Singapore canes to me. Don't care. Come for me in the comments if you want. They're Singapore canes. So they went after them, choking them with said canes until the Divine Dominion get the upper hand, I should say. Sky was working both of them over in this match with one of those canes while Julia has Lena Cross in a tarantula. Really, really nice touch there. I like that aspect of the match. It sort of allows the viciousness of the sisters to shine through, and it neutralizes the size advantage that Divine Dominion has. There was also a spot in this match where Megan Bayne hurls at almost light speed a chair at Sky in the corner, who was already busted open and had a chair in front of her already. It just sounded harsh. It looked great. Yeah, really nice spot there. Then we got a really sloppy pin attempt, unfortunately, by Julia on Lena after the sisters' typical signature spot where they do the double front suplex into the double kick. It just didn't work well. I'm not sure if Lena was out of position or if Julia, was trying to turn her the wrong direction. I don't know where the miscommunication was, but it looked awkward. We got double pump kicks in the corner soon after by Divine Dominion, and I love that as a signature move for them. It looks really, really impactful. I love that, combination move for them. We get a Megan Bayne choke slam onto Sky Blue from the apron down through a table. She gets caught coming back into the ring with the Heartless submission by Julia Hart, but she's eventually able to reverse that, shift Julia's weight around, and drop her with a tombstone. That leads us into the From Heaven to Hell, and Divine Dominion, of course, pick up the win and retain those tag team championships. This was really, really good. I mean, honestly, I think it was probably the best match of the show. You could argue that Darby and Knight was, but I feel like that was more of a vehicle to get us to where we're going with them longer term. And whereas this was a really great match that was self-sustaining, and it really, I think, helped build the Sisters of Sin back up despite the loss. And they really needed to gain some of that credibility back. The Stardom belts alone don't do that. Holding their own against a team like the Divine Dominion, the tag team champions, do that. So I like that decision, and it really showcased them very well. And I think that it showed in the crowd reaction. The crowd was so hot for this entire match. They were a lot of great "This is awesome" chants, women's wrestling's chants. I think I heard a "Fight Forever" chant. The crowd was very into this match, more so I think than any other match on the card. So not only was it the best, the crowd ate it up the most. So love that. Then that leads us to a quick backstage segment with Jay White recovering from the shillelagh shot. The Bang Bang Gang are around him, and they announced that they're going to have a match this Sunday at Redemption against the Dogs that will be a double chain match with the Dogs and Bang Bang Gang chained to each other so no one can run. This will be probably pretty hard hitting. I just assume this is a way to cap this feud off in a pretty brutal fashion. So this will be a really nice street fight-esque match. Very close to what I would imagine like a double dog collar matches would be, but just, I guess we're going with double chain. I feel like a dog collar would have made more sense considering, the dogs are in this match, but what do I know? I'm just a guy who runs a podcast. Lastly, main event time. We get Kenny Omega, Will Ospreay, and Jon Moxley taking on the Don Callis families, Brian Cage, Hechicero, and Jake Doyle. Things that are interesting to only but me. Hechicero gets the primary heel entrance. They all come out together, but it's his theme music that is played as the heels enter. Makes sense that since he is the CMLL World Heavyweight Champion. I do like the new theme they gave him, though. It's less, generic sort of stock music, and they give him sort of a more metal theme. I like that. I mean, that's my genre anyway, so of course it speaks to me, but I like when we get away from more generic themes and more towards something that's a bit more personalized. Early on in the match, we get Kenny reluctant to tag in Moxley. Obviously, given their history, that makes a great deal of sense. But this makes me really wish we were doing Kenny versus Jon Moxley at the Redemption pay-per-view. I'm sorry. This is not shade to Kevin Knight. Kevin is a very talented wrestler, but he just won his first singles championship like a few months ago. I don't know that this is the spot for him to be facing Kenny Omega main eventing a pay-per-view in Kenny's home country. I don't think it's a big enough match for that, especially if this is Kenny's last run with the AEW World Championship as a full-timer. I would have rather seen us run Kenny versus Moxley again, especially given the fact that this is a Redemption pay-per-view. The theme is Redemption. Kenny's talked about wanting to redeem himself for how he handled himself as world champion. Who did he beat for that world championship? Jon Moxley. Who did he need Don Callis to beat? Jon Moxley. So why would we not run it back with Jon Moxley at the pay-per-view? I know we're doing Young Bucks versus Mox and Ospreay at the show. I'd rather we had gone a different direction because Kenny versus Mox to me is a better marquee match. It's arguably the biggest match of the guys who are on the active shows at the moment. Um, I feel like that just would have been the better choice, especially running a big show in Canada in a big arena. I think it's the Bell Center or whatever used to be the Bell Center. It's a pretty substantial arena. I would have rather have seen, and especially for like a roadblock standpoint, you could easily make it be believable that Mox could defeat Kenny and thus go on to All In to face Will Ospreay in a Death Rider hierarchy matchup. I just think it's much more believable to have Mox possibly defeat Kenny than it is Kevin Knight. Kevin Knight's not winning that match. We all know it, so I don't know why we're doing it. The end of the match comes when we get a hidden blade and V-trigger combo that let the faces get the win. After the match, Kenny tries to shake Mox's hand and kind of bury the hatchet. Mox will have none of it and shoves him off. Will tries to get in the middle and defuse this. Kenny ends up inadvertently knocking him down. Will gets super heated, shoves Kenny back. That leads to the Bucks come out, and we get a brawl between the Death Riders and Kenny and the Bucks. And the Don Callis family comes out to kind of take an opportune moment. Roppongi Vice gets laid out ready for a V-trigger. Kenny leans in to do one, and Kevin Knight jumps over the ropes, lays him out with a belt shot. The closing segment of the show is Kevin Knight holding up both belts, previewing the possibility of Jet 2 belts, which will not happen. No matter how much you try to make this happen, it's not going to happen right now. No one is buying it, so I don't know why we're selling it. But that is the end of Dynamite for this week. It was a great show. Really good, solid matches that planted seeds for things moving forward and basically just bridged us ahead to the pay-per-view, but didn't feel like a filler show. We still got some really good quality in ring stuff. We got some hype to get us ready for the pay-per-view. We got a couple new matches announced. So I'm very much interested in the pay-per-view following this show. I thought it was going to be a little bit more lackluster based on some of the builds we had gotten, and some of them I still don't love. But the show has rounded the card out nicely, and there are some matches I'm real hyped to see. So let me know in the comments what you thought of Dynamite, what worked for you, what didn't, and I will be back tomorrow with a two-parter on a full preview of AEW's Redemption pay-per-view. Thanks again for watching Duality of Wrestling. I am Christian. We will see you, I would say on the next one, but we will see you tomorrow with the pay-per-view preview for Redemption. See you guys.